Second, even if we were to assume that everyone living in a larger body were a problem and that larger bodies are a problem and are all sick, these aggressive interventions, including weight loss pills in children as young as 12 and surgery for kids as young as 13, are potentially dangerous, are just not that effective in the short or the long term, have major risks, and we have very little information about how they affect growth and development among children and adolescents. They're expensive. They're also difficult to sustain, even if they are funded, and stopping them leads to rapid ups and downs in weights, called weight cycling, which we know are actually dangerous for health. Finally, there is evidence that eating disorders can and do emerge as a result of weight loss interventions. And I see young people in my practice all the time who develop disordered eating after hearing from their doctors that their weight is too high. This is such a concern that the Academy of Eating Disorders and several other large eating disorder organizations immediately put out a statement opposing these guidelines. With 50% of female adolescents having engaged in some form of disordered eating, we need to take this seriously. And yet the guidelines fail to mention eating disorders beyond a single statement and did not include any people with eating disorder expertise, or for that matter, anyone with lived experiences of eating disorders or any fat people in the development of these guidelines. These guidelines reinforce weight stigma and the thin ideal, which is rooted in racism, classism, and sexism. Weight stigma and anti-fat bias and discrimination are a threat to health. In fact, in 2017, the AAP put out a strong policy statement titled Stigma Experienced by Children and Adolescents with Obesity, as we heard from my colleague, and outlined the physical and mental health effects of experiencing stigma. It's associated with social isolation, avoidance of healthcare, decreased physical activity, poor mental health, increased morbidity and mortality, independent of a person's excess weight. And I'm going to put that in quotes. These guidelines acknowledge that, and yet they do almost nothing about it beyond saying, this is a problem, we need to address it. So in summary, I am very concerned about the impact of these guidelines on the children and adolescents I work with every single day.
Well, the bad of having them not there is we're just rudderless as physicians, that we just don't have any science or effective treatment or parameters for having clear discussions about what might really be going on with these kids. I mean, the argument that we're telling kids that they're sick, that's just untrue. If kids come into us with a high BMI or an abnormal pattern of weight gain, kids who have gained weight throughout the pandemic, these kids are coming to us with concerns, with abnormal growth patterns. That's our job. Our job is to do pattern recognition. As pediatricians, and Janna knows that you don't ever look at one moment on the BMI and say, well, you're severely obese. I mean, that's just absurd to think that caring pediatricians are using this as the only measure of counseling parents or patients on whether or not they have something that needs to be fixed. If we don't have clear evidence-based scientific guidelines that help us have conversations about treatments, we're just sitting watching these kids develop early diabetes, early heart disease. I mean, your kids in clinic, you're seeing kids with PCOS and trouble with, menstrual irregularities. I mean, these are problems that are rooted in obesity. So
what I think I hear you saying is that the status quo is unacceptable because the status quo is resulting in more kids having these issues and having them into adulthood.
It will change when some of these medications come off patent, when they're more available. We could talk a lot about the pharmaceutical companies and the price gouging, and it's a really huge problem. That's a whole other conversation that should be had. What is going on? Why are these treatments not universally available? And I'd like to leave you with the words of a parent of a 16-year-old who's currently getting medical treatment for her obesity. And she wrote me a beautiful letter. And in that letter, she wrote, "I can't express to you how much this treatment has helped our daughter and our family. Our relationships have improved, our stress levels are reduced, and dinner time is no longer a time of anguish. She still has a long way to go, but treatment has transformed my daughter at a time where high school, social challenges, and general teenage life demand so much. This has been an ideal time to break negative habits that were setting in on the mental and physical front. I know my daughter will continue her journey with the hope and determination that she was lacking before. For that, we are so very grateful." Thank you for having us. And yes, it wouldn't be uncommon for us to now go to coffee and just learn from each other and enjoy each other's company.
Yeah, we probably will.
We would actually.